Hi, I'm Henry Fitzgerald, and I'm here with Beth Casavant. Beth is finishing her second term on the Select Board. You joined the board in 2017 when I finished my second term. So in a sense, you took over the term as position I was leaving. Beth is running for re-election in a contested race. And that's very interesting because many years we don't have that many candidates. This year we have many candidates. In fact, this other person who's leaving the board is Mo DiPaolo. Mo spent 30 years on the board, and we congratulate him for that. But that creates two open seats. Certainly it's creating a ton of interest in those particular seats. I think it's critically important for people to understand who the candidates are and know as much as you can about each one of them. Please take the time to understand who the candidates are so you can make an informed decision. The election is on May 2nd, so mark that on your calendars. Beth, a lot has changed since I was a board member just 6 years ago. The only person on the board at that time was Mo DiPaolo. That puts you in a position to be the senior member of the board. I don't know, how does that make you feel, and what do you think about that?
Well, it's a really good question. It's a question I get quite a bit. I want to start just by thanking you for taking the time to record this show with me. It's time out of your day, and I very much appreciate it. The board's changed a lot since I was first elected in 2017. I mean, I can clearly recall you just saying to me in passing that you were not going to be seeking a third term. And that got the wheels sort of turning in my head a little bit about whether or not this was something that I wanted to do. And I'd been involved in the community through my kids' PTOs and as an elected town meeting member for Precinct 8. I had served as a trustee of the public library and worked on various campaigns in town around the Sherwood Middle School and the library renovation and expansion, the 2014 override. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna give this a try and see if I can, earn a seat on the select board. And at that time, it was the Board of Selectmen, right?
That's right.
And when I joined the board, it was a group of people who had been together for a very long time. And ever since I joined, every year we lose one more long-serving member. And that creates a set of challenges, really. While new members bring wonderful perspectives, there's also a learning curve. It's a very complex position, as you recall. There's a lot that you need to start understanding and thinking through all at once. And when you start to lose that balance between experienced members and new members, there's fewer people to sort of play that role of mentor. I spend a lot of time working to mentor the new members on the board. And that's as simple as, calling someone up a couple of days before a meeting and saying, are you comfortable with the agenda? Are you feeling like you have questions? Is there something that I can help you to better understand? For example, on our agenda for this evening, we're going to be discussing water rates. We have to think through the water rate schedule, and more than likely we'll have to increase water rates because that's just the way it goes. The last time we did water rates was in 2017 when I first joined the board. So outside of myself and Mo, no one has been through a water rate adjustment prior to this. So there are these things that don't come up every year, but are critically important to the residents of the community and have very real impacts on people's lives. I mean, everybody's using water in town unless you're on a well. And so those are the kinds of things that take time to bring new members up to speed and make sure that they're comfortable. I can't believe that Mo served for 30 years. I'm in awe of that. And also, we lost John LeBeau last year. He retired from the board after 24 years. Again, that is an amazing contribution to the community. And I think through, at this point, right, going through an election cycle 10 times, that's what Mo did. 10 times. I mean, this is a great position. I absolutely love everything about it, but running for office is very challenging. You're putting yourself out there for the community to basically evaluate. And, for him to have done that 10 times and then to have served the community in the way that he has and to have touched so many lives, it's a real loss for the board. I know he's only a phone call away, but it's still a real loss.
I think your point about mentoring is very important. I was the youngest board member, surrounded by people who had no less than 9 or 3 terms on the board, so it was very different. What do you see as the chief responsibilities as a board member?
So I'm going to give you the formal answer first.
Okay.
I was always really interested in how this form of government, what was the history behind it? I'm originally from Connecticut, so we don't have this type of government. I grew up in a city with a mayor. This form of government is very unique to New England and also to Massachusetts specifically. And the position of select board member can be traced back over 400 years to where there would be a group of select citizens chosen to sort of carry out the work of the town in between town meetings. And in 1633, Dorchester was the first New England town to organize a local government with this form of government, and they chose 12 men to be their selectmen. And so once other Massachusetts towns started to adopt this form of government, it caught on. And we have, as everyone watching knows, a form of government with a 5-member select board and a town manager. So the select board is really the executive branch of our government. And we set policies that shape the future of the community. We set goals that determine the strategic direction of the town. We are responsible for the fiscal health of our town. We are directly involved in budgeting. It's year-round. We are always looking at the budget because that is critically important to decisions that we're making. And then we set the warrant for any town meetings. We set water rates. We are the road commissioners. We make appointments to other boards and committees. We grant licenses and permits, and we also are responsible for hiring and evaluating the town manager's performance. And that's something that we will be doing at our meeting this evening. And that, again, is another example of where I was called upon to sort of provide guidance to some of the newer members who had never been through a manager's evaluation before. And, that's something that's critically important. And yet, until you see it for the first time, you can really feel a little bit untethered trying to work your way through the process.
Sure.
Yeah. So.
Well, thank you for that history lesson, which probably most of us didn't really know. So coming from Connecticut, you had to learn a little bit about our history, which is great. So you gave a very formal answer.
Yes.
With a history combined. What's your less formal answer?
Well, my less formal answer is it's everything that I talked about. It's all part of the public-facing business meetings that people see if they tune in to our meetings on Tuesday nights or they choose to watch them at another time. There's a whole other piece of this role that I think really speaks to community relations and building trust with the voters and the residents of the community, that you're working in their best interests and that when you make a decision, you are making it as someone who also lives in this community and will be directly impacted by whatever that decision is. For me, I've always wanted to be seen as someone who's approachable. I want people to feel like they can come up to me at the grocery store if they have something that they want to talk about, that they can call me up out of the blue, and if they have a question about their tax bill or traffic concerns on their neighborhood streets, that I'm someone who's going to pick up the phone, stop what I'm doing, make time for the conversation, follow up appropriately, and then get back to the resident. That is something that I find to be critical to the role and something that I take very seriously. And I really enjoy having those direct interactions with our residents and showing them ways in which local government can work to improve their quality of life.
So I've already mentioned this is a crowded field, and you've expanded upon that a bit. But you have to separate and show what makes you a strong candidate. What sets you apart from all the other candidates in this field?
So, that's a really good question. I look at myself as having a proven track record of successful leadership. I'm a creative problem solver. I can make decisions in a very balanced way, and I can collaborate not only with my fellow board members, but with other boards and committees and with residents. I work to move our community toward the goals that we've set. And if I'm reelected, I am going to be, as you mentioned, the most senior member on the board that is very young. My experience and knowledge will be critical as we onboard new members, because if I win my seat, there will be another new member. And supporting members who have less than a term's worth of experience is part of the role. There's challenges that come from that turnover, as we talked about, and that's not just challenges for board members, but it's also challenges for the manager, always needing to work with new people on the board and trying to sort of avoid the whiplash that comes if we're constantly changing directions every time a new member joins the board. So I'm hoping to bring some consistency of leadership to the board and also just continue the work that I really enjoy doing for the community.
You know, when I was on the board, there was the refrain that every member is alike. There's really not much difference between it. And that change is good. Change is good necessarily all the time. I'd like you to address that in any way you can to talk about change, good or bad, that might be happening in our community, with specifically with regard to the select board.
So I think you are absolutely right. Some people really do believe that our board is completely made up of like-minded individuals, and that is true to the extent that we are all interested in sharing our time and our talents to serve the community. But just because we function respectfully as a board, it doesn't mean that we don't have different opinions and perspectives on critical issues. We disagree quite often. We are 5 different people in different stages of our lives. Some have kids that are completely grown. Some have kids that are, very young. Myself and select board member Flynn, we have kids in high school. So, Mr. Samia, he has kids in college. It's just, we're all in different life stages. We aren't hanging out together outside of our meetings because we are different people in going in different directions. But when we do come together, I can promise you that we are doing so in the best interest of the town. And that when we disagree on issues, it is in our workshops, it is on phone calls that we might have. It's when we meet weekly with the manager. I personally meet with the manager once a week, and I have select board member Conlin. She meets with me, and that way she's learning. It's part of that mentorship that I talked about. We often talk through different perspectives that we might have on something, but it's always with respect. And I think it's very important that people don't confuse the fact that we don't argue on camera with us just all thinking the exact same way and every decision being sort of predetermined.
Right.
That's not true. We do not argue on camera. We try to stay out of the headlines for negative reasons. No one needs that. People should be able to look at their local leadership and be proud of the respectful way that we interact with one another, because that's what leads to the results that make Shrewsbury the community that it is. So I know that there are people who might say, well, we need someone on the board to disrupt.
Right.
We don't. We always need a different perspective or a different set of opinions, but there is a way to approach that is respectful.
So thinking about these past 6 years, there's been many decisions made, many of which I've probably forgotten at this point. But maybe you can share with us some of the items that you find are been critically important and successful to the town of Shrewsbury.
Sure. Yeah, that's a really good question. So running for re-election makes you reflect upon the work that you've done over the past 3-6 years. And I'm really proud of so much that we've done. I mean, for me, so I served as chair right in 2020, so it was pandemic times. So leading the town through the pandemic, helping to be a part of that, was something that I'm extremely proud of. I also am the only person who served as chair without ever actually touching a gavel because we were always in virtual meetings. So for me, that's like something I'm personally proud of, was being able to sort of switch gears and work in that virtual setting and still keep getting work done, right? The work of the town couldn't stop just because we were dealing with a public health emergency. If anything, the work of the town not only had to continue, but also had to be able to be nimble and shift and change and respond to a very an ever-changing landscape, right? Not just public health, but also financial, and just all of the impacts that went along with working our way through COVID. I'm also really proud of the work that's been done between the select board and the school committee. And I am sure that you recall from your time on the board that the relationship between those two policy-making boards is critically important. We, as a select board, right, we set the whole budget for the town, but 80% of our budget is the school budget. And for as long, I think, as I can remember, we have been talking about a structural deficit that would always result in the manager putting out a fiscal projection and saying, okay, this is how much we have available for school funding, and then the superintendent putting out his budget and then revealing the insurmountable budget gap that we would then need to spend weeks, months trying to reconcile public hearings with parents coming and just begging for some sort of solution. Like, that's just not productive. And not being able to count on stable funding in your school budget is also something that's very disorientating for the school committee and for families to have to sort of weather every single year. Teachers, staff, like, it impacts everyone in the organization. So we did start to work in these meetings that we call 2-2 meetings. So it's 2 members of the select board, 2 members of the school committee, Mr. Mizikar, Dr. Sawyer, and Pat Collins, who's the superintendent of finance and operations for the schools. We meet probably every 3 weeks to a month, first thing in the morning on a Friday, and we talk through the big issues. And this has been going on now for probably 2.5 years. It's what brought us the agreement between the residents and our boards, the community, around the 2021 override. It's what is making it a very different experience now when we talk about budgeting, because we know right away, okay, according to this document, this agreement document, this is how much schools, this is how much municipal, and everybody kind of can work together because we're looking at and talking through what the big issues are before they become big issues. I'm really proud of that.
I really like the fact that you've decided to have these meetings. I don't know if that was a collective decision of the board.
Or 2
and
boards.
of the boards. So that's not something we did
Right.
back even 6 years ago. So I congratulate you for that, because I think the budgeting part of the process is the most time demanding
For sure.
of all of it.
It is.
And the things you've just added probably have made that whole scenario of budgeting that much easier, because that usually is every Saturday in February for 5 or 6 times, and
Right.
it's very consuming. I did not like the aspect of everyone essentially coming and begging for money, because we didn't completely understand what their systems were. That said, I congratulate you for doing that. We're kind of running a little short on time now, so I appreciate you giving us such open and honest answers to things that are going on here. And this is a time maybe if you could make some final comments.
Sure. So the race is contested, as you know, and people have a really important choice to make on Tuesday, May 2nd. And to me, the most important thing is that people go out and vote. It may not be for me, it may be for another candidate, but I think exercising your right to vote and taking part in this democratic process is critically important. Local elections matter more than anything else to the quality of your life. I am more than happy to talk to people. I'm out on doors, but I'm just one person, and I'll never get to everyone. There's so many voters in our community. So please, if people would like to reach out to me, my information is on the screen. I can be reached by phone, by email, and I really do welcome those conversations. And I will answer my phone, even if I don't know the number, even though that horrifies my husband. I tell him until May 2nd, that is just what's happening.
And again, the election is on
Tuesday, May 2nd.
Tuesday, May 2nd. Again, thank you very much.
Thanks for your time, Henry.